What's up guys, Matt Day here, and today I just want to give you guys my first impressions on my new Rolleiflex. This is a Rolleiflex 2.8F, and it's a camera I've wanted to try out for a long time now, and I've always searched on YouTube for videos on the camera, and honestly there is like nothing on this particular model on YouTube. There's a lot of different videos on like the 3.5 versions of the Rolleiflex and the 2.8E and D, cameras like that, and they're great cameras, but I've always wanted to try out the 2.8F with the planar lens just because I like that Zeiss lens. It's the same kind of lens that would be on a Hasselblad. Obviously not the same lens, but it's the planar design, and I've always really liked that lens. So I wanted to try this out. This is one that's been on my list for a long time, and I ended up getting this on a trade through the Film Photo Gear group on Facebook, and I traded my Pentax 6.7 II for this camera. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, you probably saw the post about that, and you may have seen some of the comments where people were like blown away and even like downright angry that I traded that camera for this. People were saying like, I thought you loved the Pentax 6.7 II, and I do. It's an amazing camera and I really enjoy using it, but it's just a camera. Just like any other camera, it's gonna be a tool to make images. There are only certain cameras that I have that I feel like I will always have, or that I know I will always have in some cases, like my Leica M6, my Nikon FM2. Like, those are cameras I use to make images of my daughter when she was born, and I've used those cameras for years on a lot of different things between me and my wife, obviously our kids now, and they're special cameras to me for sentimental reasons. It's not about how expensive the camera is, or what kind of things it does, or the lenses it takes, anything like that. It's just about the sentimental reasons. And the Pentax 6.7 II is great, and I've used it to take photos of my family, but it's not one that I'm like deeply attached to. Like, I love using it, but it's just another camera. And the Rolleiflex is just another camera that I've always wanted to try out. So I saw somebody post it on the Film Photo Gear group, and they were kind of open to trades, and I just thought, well, the 6.7 II is awesome, but I haven't been using it as much lately. For all of my paid work, like my portrait work, I tend to grab the 645N just because I get more frames per roll and it's a little bit faster to use out in the field. And I just figured I'd give it a shot, and he was down for it, so here we are. This camera came in, I think, 3 days ago now at this point. And I actually used it on a wedding yesterday. My good friend Corey Miller, who is an avid film shooter himself, I actually met Corey, to take his proposal photos, and he knew of me just through the YouTube channel, which is awesome that that kind of thing happened. And I used this Rolleiflex at his wedding yesterday, which was really cool. And I'll get into kind of how that was using it in a wedding, especially being such a new camera. But I'll get into that here in a minute. But the Rolleiflex, my first impressions were that it is extremely nice. It feels really great. You guys know I love the Yashica Matte 124G. I had a really good time using that camera for a while, and especially for the cost. I mean, that thing is a gem. I mean, it's got a great lens on it. You throw some close-up filters on there, you can do all kinds of different things with it. But I've always heard that just Rolleiflex, just the way they feel really nice, and this one definitely does. I think that this one could use a good CLA, which I am planning on doing. And while I go send it in to just be completely overhauled, and so everything is nice and smooth, like it should be, I also think I'm going to get a bright screen installed in here, because the viewfinder in here, the ground glass in it, it's not terribly bright. And yesterday I was using this some outdoors at the wedding, but also I used it inside of this barn where the reception was, and it had just like your typical small tungsten light bulbs everywhere. It wasn't very bright at all, and focusing kind of took me a little bit of time. Some of the stuff it kind of locked into focus pretty quick, but I did find myself kind of rolling back and forth with the focus, just trying to nail it exactly. And I do think I'm going to get a Maxwell screen put in here, and I've never owned a Maxwell screen before in any of my cameras, but a lot of my friends have, always suggested them and saying that it makes a huge difference, especially in a Rolleiflex. So I am going to be getting that done soon. I don't know exactly where I'm going to get this sent off. Everybody, swears by Harry Fleener, who at RolleiRepairs.com. That's just what he does. He repairs Rolleis all day, every day. And because of that, and because his work is so good, and he is so busy, The turnaround time, I went ahead and emailed him and asked him about cost and turnaround time, and it's an extremely fair price, but because he is so busy, the turnaround time would be about 3 months. So I would have to ship this off and be without it for 3 months in order to have that done. Now, there's a whole argument going into that about, you get what you pay for kind of thing. And it's not going to be the quickest work, but it's going to be the best work. And, I totally believe that, and I totally believe what everybody says about his work and how phenomenal it is. That would just be really, really tough for me because, only having it for a few days, I have really enjoyed using the camera. So, I'm thinking about maybe sending it somewhere where I can get a little bit quicker turnaround time, and then, maybe, I don't know, maybe if the winter is, if I'm finding myself not shooting it as much once the snow and everything really sets in, then maybe I'll send it off, and, once summer or spring rolls around, I'll be able to have the camera again. So I'm still kind of, toying around with that. But the viewfinder itself, like I said, it is pretty dim. And the camera does feel great. It feels like some things are a little bit loose, like I could probably just kind of get things cleaned up, tightened up a little bit. But just shooting the camera has been awesome. I mean, aside from that, just the experience of shooting the camera has been great. It's really just like any other TLR. So if you're familiar with TLRs, like a Yashica mat or any of the other Rolleiflexes, you're going to get that same experience. There's just always something about a TLR that I really, really enjoy. But first impressions, like I said, it's been great. I do really enjoy the camera. I actually did develop a couple of rolls so far that I have shot with this. And you guys know, working for the Find Lab, I haven't actually sent any of my film, or I've always been sending my film out, even my black and white, for a long time now. I've been working for the Find Lab for almost a year, so I've been sending all of my film out, and rather than doing it myself, for quite a while now. But I knew that the weekend was coming up and I was going to be shooting Corey's wedding, and I thought I'd really like to use this. So just to be on the safe side, I went ahead and shot a couple rolls around the house, developed those, and I'll put up a couple of frames here so you can check those out. And that was a lot of fun for me to get back in the darkroom and develop again. It had been a long time, and if I had the amount of time that I used to, I would probably develop more here and there. But with the amount I shoot and how busy I am, there's no way I can keep up with it right now, especially with our son being due in just a couple of weeks or a few weeks. I don't have the time anymore. But it was nice to develop that. Those photos that you saw were scanned on my Epson V600, and it was interesting for me to go back to that whole workflow just because it had been so long. But I went ahead and tested out the camera, developed it just to make sure everything was good, and I didn't have any issues at all. So that's really nice. I did yesterday, while shooting the wedding, I went ahead and made a mistake that every Rollie user has probably done at some point. And I always heard people talk about this, and of course it happened right whenever I got the Rollie out to shoot at the wedding. But if you don't load the film correctly, where you put the take up, like the paper, once you first go to load it, if you don't put it underneath a certain roller, that senses the tension in the film, so it knows when the film starts. So if you don't do that, you're just going to sit there and advance all the way through the entire roll, and it's never going to stop at one. So I did that yesterday, which was tragic. But it's one of those things that, like I said, I think every Rollie user has probably done it before, and hopefully it's one of those things that you do it once and you never make that mistake again. But as far as using it, at a wedding, especially being a new camera, it was all right, aside from that thing. I didn't take up too much extra time trying to load it. I was kicking myself for that, but it happens. And luckily, like I said, I've known Corey for a long time now, so he totally get it, or he totally got that. But aside from the viewfinder, trying to shoot it more quickly, I was shooting it during the reception, and I was wanting to get more candid kind of stuff, so I was just walking around, taking photos of guests and family members, and it was a really exciting thing to shoot a camera like this because I wasn't, pulling the camera up to my face. I was kind of holding it down, and people would, look at it because they thought, oh, that's an old camera. That's kind of cool. But they didn't really pay too much attention to me. And, the leaf shutter in the lens, it's super quiet. So, it really kind of lended itself to that kind of environment, and I did enjoy that as well. But yeah, so far, I've been enjoying the camera a lot. These rolls right here that I shot, I'm actually kind of anxious to see how they look, and Molly and Nora are out of town this weekend, and I have a few hours today, so I think I'm actually going to develop these and then send them off with the rest of my film that needs to go to the lab, just so the lab can scan them, because my Epson V600 doesn't do as good of a job scanning as like the Noritsu does at the Find Lab. You know, they're using a much nicer scanner, obviously, but I would really like to see these negatives because I'm very, very excited to see how it turned out. I shot one roll of HP5 outside during the ceremony and just kind of as guests were coming in. And then I shot 3 rolls of Delta 3200 at the reception. And with that film, I actually exposed it at about 1600, and I'm gonna have them push it to 3200 because Delta 3200 isn't actually a true 3200 speed film. It's actually a speed of 1000, and then it's able to be pushed up to 3200. And it's kind of a tricky film to really get the best results, you know, just exposing it at 3200 and not being in the best kind of light, your results are going to vary, you know, vastly. And that's something that I kind of want to talk about in a future video, just because a lot of people misunderstand, because as they should, whenever you see a film that says Delta 3200, you naturally would think that's a 3200 speed film, but it's actually not. And I could talk about that in a future video if you guys are interested. But yeah, so far, really enjoying the Rollie. I have the lens hood that came with it, a prism viewfinder, which surprisingly I actually really like, and I think whenever I get my close-up filters, which are on the way, I think that with the prism I'll be able to shoot a lot of portraits that I really like with this setup. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my first impressions. Super excited about it. I'm not looking forward to sending this off and being without it for a while, but I'm sure it's going to be way worth it once it comes back and is in perfect order. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys are a fan of Rolleiflexes, you know, if you have any questions about this particular one. Once I do spend some more time with the camera, I would like to do a full in-depth review and, you know, possibly do some stuff actually out shooting with the camera rather than just being here in the office. But it all depends on time and, you know, weather as we're approaching, you know, going through fall right now. Winter's going to be coming up any minute now, it seems like. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys have any questions for me, please let me know and I'll try to answer anything I can. And if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you stay tuned for all the future content that I have coming up. Also, I'm going to be talking about my podcast here in the next couple of days, and the first episode has been great so far, so I'm really excited about it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed as well. So I want to thank you guys as always for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.